Hello there and welcome to this webinar on Alps methodology. I'm assuming that you are from a GEMS school, so welcome. I'm going to talk you through today the way in which we generate numbers so that you can understand where they come from and then obviously what they're telling you about your analysis. I'm going to start just by giving you a brief introduction really to what we're doing here at Alps. You will have hopefully received your examination data from your summer examination series, and so you may already have looked at your report or indeed Connect Interactive to look at what's going on in your school. Those are the two different systems then that we provide to enable you to have a good level of understanding of where you're sitting in terms of your examination outcomes. So Connect Interactive really is our main driver, and the idea of Connect Interactive is that you submit a set of examination or monitoring data, and then immediately it's accessible to all of your staff across your whole school. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you some progress measures against the full national data set. Now, every year the Department for Education release to us the full entire national data set for A-levels, ASs, BTECs, IB. We're going to look at those this afternoon. We then use that data from all sorts of schools in the data set, state schools, independent schools, and we crunch it down and we look at how we construct our benchmark tables. So I'm going to take you through that in this webinar. Now, we can analyse then various different indicators across our schools based on that national database. So in different webinars, and hopefully you've got your digital information pack, but across the different webinars and various different resources that I've put together for you, you will see that you can analyse then at a strategic level. So that's how am I doing across my whole school, amalgamated progress figures. How am I doing at a subject level? And then how am I doing with my individual students? And there are various different resources and webinars that will help you understand those specific things. We're going to be able to use Connect Interactive across the whole academic year. So if you're doing in-year tracking, then you're going to use the same methodology that we're going to talk through now to measure progress at any given point in your academic year. So it's the same benchmark data and the same methodology. Similarly, you're going to be able to track your own performance groups of students. So, for example, you might want to track your Emirati students. You can track those also against that full national data set. So hopefully that makes sense. Today then we're going to look at the methodology. I'm going to talk through first of all the grading and how that works, because there's some very unique colours and Alps grades to get your heads around. And once you've understood that, then that's how it looks across the whole of your reports in Connect Interactive. I'm also going to talk about minimum expected grades, because what the Alps methodology does is really kind of hinge around those minimum expected grades. And we're going to show a little bit about how those are constructed. Those are aspirational grades, so we're going to talk a lot about that top 25% or that 75th percentile and how you aspire to get progress equivalent to that. Down the bottom there then, I've got a couple of other resources that might be very interesting to you once you've done this webinar, and that's the target setting one, where we talk through how to interpret the minimum expected grades at a subject level. There's a quick guide to go with that. And the Alps guide, every single thing that I'm going to say and all the benchmark tables is available to you in your Alps guide, where I'll show you how to get that in just a moment. Right then, let's talk about the grading. A very unique grading system for Alps, and it's been around for a couple of decades now. So let's look at what it tells us. We've got grading that is consistent across the whole of the platform. That's Connect Interactive and your reports, and consistent across all of your whole school strategic indicators, all of your individual subject indicators, and the colours are consistent with your student indicators in Connect Interactive and how they're measured against the minimum expected grades. So I'm going to talk through all of that, but in terms of how we look at the grades then, you've got these colours. So red, black and blue are our colours, and that's because they're built on a thermometer, which we're going to look at on the next slide. But if you are red for any of your indicators, this is good news. This means that you have matched, for that indicator, you have matched the progress of being made by the schools or subjects in the top 25% in the national database. That means that you're going to translate into an Alps grade of 1, 2 or 3, and that indicator is going to be coloured red, as I said. If you're broadly national average, and that's then the black area of the thermometer, your grades are going to be 4, 5, 6. And then if you're in the blue, where you don't want to be, is the bottom 25% of progress nationally, and that's grades 7, 8 and 9. So the idea of that mantra at the bottom is, if you're red, brilliant, excellent, red hot. If you're blue, that's not so good, and that would be then obviously where you would be focusing resources in order to move that subject or your school progress out of the blue. So what does that look like on a thermometer? Here we go. The thermometer then looks like that. That's a generic thermometer with, you will see 1 to 9 Alps grades down the side. And then you've got some percentage rankings down the left-hand side there. So if you're grade 1, that means that you've matched the top provider in the dataset. So you are the 100% mark. If you are a grade 9, that means you are lower than the lowest provider in the dataset. And if you are in the top 25%, then from 75% upwards, you can see then on the thermometer that that turns you red. And if you're in the bottom 25%, you can see that that turns you blue. So hopefully that makes sense, because all of your indicators are based on that visual picture. So every single indicator in your report then has a unique scale. So if I just pop back to that thermometer there, down that 100% down to the bottom, you're going to have some numbers on that depending on which indicator you are looking at. And every single one is unique. And every single one has been constructed independently, and that's based on that national database, okay? And in order for you to get the most out of your staff and the most out of your subject reviews and the most out of your tracking data, it's really key for the senior management team at the school to have an understanding of where that comes from, where those scales come from. So I'm going to take you through some of those now. Okay, before we get to the scales, we've got to understand where the numbers come from. So I'm going to now talk you through that process. Where do they come from? What's this minimum expected grade, or MEG, that I've been talking about? And how is progress then measured? Now, it says A-level and BTEC. I am going to just push IB in there as well, so that those of you doing IB have got a feel for what those benchmarks look like. As I said, these are all available in the Alps guide, and they're the full national data set. So the Alps guide is on your Connect homepage, and it's in the resources section. You can see it in the middle there, Alps guide. Okay, so it's progress. So we got to have a start point and an end point. So at each of those post-16 qualifications, the start point is the prior attainment at GCSE. The output point is the old UCAS points for A, AS and BTEC. And for the IB, I'll show you the Alps output points as per our benchmark tables. And what we're really measuring then is the journey, if you like, from that start point to that end point. The journey of all of the schools in the national data set, and then how your journey measures up to that. So let me try to illustrate that in this slide. The first thing that we do then is we split our students into prior attainment bands. Now there's the A-level prior attainment bands. There are 11. You can see the ranges for each of those bands, and the BTEC ones are there. There are also 11. However, notice that the distribution pattern of the BTECs is slightly different because of the nature of the students that are taking that qualification, and that's emphasised in the IB bands. There are only 9, but look at that distribution of bands. It's very much skewed towards the more able at GCSE, who are mainly the students who are taking those IB qualifications. So we're going to look at A-level now, and we're going to look at this top band, and we're going to look at how much progress is being made across the national data set for students in that top band. All right, so there it is, 7.5 plus, and we're going to look at what output points various different schools across the national data set got. So you can see that there's a big range. So the highest attaining school got 132 UCAS points, whereas the one at the bottom got 106 or 107 rounded up. And that's with students in that banded category only, okay? So what we do is we rank those. Remember that thermometer's got a 0 to 100% on it. So let's go ahead and rank where those scores, those output points came on that thermometer. So I've cunningly chosen the quartile rankings there, so we can see how we maybe have to do with our students to match those different quartile rankings. So according to our theory so far then, students schools at the top 25% turn red. So those two, 75% and 100% and everything in between, gets a red grading. Those at the bottom have a blue grading, so those two are blue. And the key thing is that the Alps philosophy really hinges around that top 25%. So what we're saying is that in order to be aspirational with your students, you got to aim to match the progress being made by the provider at the top 25%, at the 75% line. And for the 2019-20 benchmarks, that is 125.03 UCAS points or output points. So what we're going to do is translate that into a grade, which is A star A. And so therefore that becomes our minimum expected grade.